Hi, I'm Nyx, and I am a spiritual protector in Collective Mind. I decided I might as well include Charlie Cam for this video since she's in here right now with me. And she's being pretty cute, so there are essentially two parts to this video as we have planned it. One is talking about what spiritual protectors are, because in videos in the past that we've made about different roles, we haven't included that in the list. We didn't officially have any spiritual protectors at the time, which is why. And the second part is going to be more personal about us and our relationship with spirituality generally and how that has fairly recently changed. This video is obviously related to religious things generally, and I'm going to reference religious trauma and religious abuse, but I'm not going to give any specifics, nothing remotely specific until the second part of the video, so I'll let you know when that's coming in case you want to skip any references that are specific to certain types of religions and things like that. But I'm not going to discuss any specifics related to trauma or abuse. So spiritual protectors, in the same kind of way as physical protectors, sexual protectors, emotional protectors, and so on, protect against spiritual things, spiritual harm in some way. It's often, but not always, in response to religious trauma, in a lot of cases religious abuse, or even if it's not necessarily religious abuse, specifically religion being tied in with the abuse in some way. Maybe the abuser is very religious, for instance. Even if that's not a component of the abuse itself, it would feel very related, or it could at least. There can also be religious-based shame for other types of trauma that can be really emotional and complicated, and issues of like broken promises, abandonment issues type things as it relates to religion, of feeling like the religion promised things that it didn't do, that it didn't fulfill, promised help that it didn't give, that type of thing. And there are several different ways that a spiritual protector could like fulfill that role. So they could protect by being the one to engage with that religion. So fronting while religious things are happening in any way, and that could present as that altar feeling safe in the context of that religion, liking it, being okay with doing it, and that type of thing. Or the flip side of it is also harmful for them, but they are taking on that harm themselves to protect other altars because they are better equipped to handle it in some way. Or they can, for instance, look okay while they're participating in it, even if it's harming them, that type of thing. But it can also look like rejecting that religion, so it can be part of the healing process from religious trauma or religious abuse, not always, but it can be to reject that religion and be an atheist or find a different religion, or not necessarily be an atheist but not want to personally engage in religion, anything like that, to like have more control over what, if any, religious and spiritual things you engage with, essentially. But it can also look like helping other altars in the system to process their feelings and issues with the religion. So talking through it and being there with them while they feel whatever they're dealing with related to it. Spiritual protectors, like altars generally in any system, are going to be different depending on what their system needed them to be and what their life experiences are and all kinds of things. And different spiritual protectors, even in the same system, could be very different people and have pretty different specific aspects to their role. It's something that I feel like is important generally to understand about roles within systems, is that knowing someone's role in a lot of cases doesn't actually tell you very much about them. It might tell you some of what they do, but it might not even tell you that, because the same role can be fulfilled in a lot of different ways in a lot of cases. But it certainly doesn't tell you what that specific alter feels about their role, or if they chose their role willingly or were more forced into it. There's just all kinds of things, and then anything outside of the role themselves, the role itself, about like their personality, the things they like and dislike, and you don't know anything about them as a person. You know maybe a few things about their job, but that's it. So in our case, we've had a really complicated, painful history with religion. And we have been, most of our system, for the most part, has pulled away from religion generally for a long time. Not everyone in our system feels the same way about it. And different alters in our system got to that point, even if they got to a similar point, got there in like different time frames and for different reasons and things like that. Some of us were never comfortable with it. Some of us had different types of feelings about it over time, etc. And we are still, generally speaking, not comfortable with organized religion for us. We don't care what other people believe as long as they're not hurting anyone, including themselves. But for us, we're not currently comfortable with organized religion. If you have seen a lot of our videos before, you probably know that we have magic in our inner world, so that's something, I feel like that in a way is one of the ways that we've been reclaiming some of our spirituality for a long time, even before the more recent progress in that area for us. And it has like a fantasy escapism component to it, but it also has an empowering component of like having the power ourselves instead of relying on someone with the power type thing. But it also, the fact that we have magic in our inner world helps us to feel more comfortable with the idea of magic generally. And partly because of that, we're starting to look into, before I say that, this is where I'm gonna reference a few more specific things with what we're starting to look into. But I'm still not going to get into much detail at all, because we want, at least right now, we want this to be pretty personal for us. But we are starting to, generally speaking, look into some things related to paganism and witchcraft, which I think is comforting for a lot of us who have magic in our inner world, to look into ideas related to magic in this external world too. And again, it's empowering. It feels safer. And not everyone in our system is involved in this. We're not pressuring anyone in our system to be involved or to not be involved. It's up to everyone individually, and we're not like prescribing these like religious or spiritual ideas on anyone outside of our system either. Again, we don't care what you believe. We care what you do with what you believe. But this is something that feels more flexible than other, like, religious experiences we've had in the past. It feels safe and empowering and not judgmental or shaming or as like rule driven and like punishment focused and things like that. And it feels more separate from our specific trauma, which is important to us. But it's also a way that we're finding that we can add additional meaning and power, essentially, to things that we want to be doing anyway. Things like self-care and grounding and things like that. Like, we already have some, we call them our grounding rocks, but they're crystals. They're like unpolished, rough crystals. Like this, that have edges to them and different like colors and textures and everything. And that's an example of like, that's something we had already, that we were doing already, that now we are maybe just adding a little more meaning to. Like, maybe if I'm grounding from a specific type of thing, I would grab a specific one of those crystals. That type of thing. Or the mixture that we make for staying hydrated to deal with our physical disability, we're starting to call those health potions, which just makes it feel more special and separates it from medical things to an extent, which can help us too. And those types of things of how we can make it more special and more meaningful without it adding extra pressure necessarily, because it's really important to us in order for it to continue to feel safe, that it's not structured in a punishment way, but it's also not structured in a like, how good are you at practicing your religion type way, because it needs to be flexible enough that when it is helpful and we are capable of it, that we can do as much or as little as we want to in that moment. And when it's not helpful or we're not capable of it, nothing bad happens. We need something that can sit there for 3 months if we're not up for it, or if we can't touch anything remotely religious for a while, whatever. And for individual practices to be able to like do one for a while and then decide it's not a good fit for us and go do a different one, and all of those things. We also, generally speaking, about religion as a whole, like the idea of religion being like good or bad or anything like that, we feel pretty strongly that it can help people. It can be comforting, it can build communities, it can be a powerfully good force in someone's life. But it is generally problematic when it's forced on people. Forcing things on people, for the most part, is problematic when it's not like safety related. We also feel very strongly that it's okay to hold religions to at least the same standard as other relationships. So if you didn't consent to be in the relationship, that's a problem. If the relationship is very negative for you, that's a problem. If describing a different type of relationship in those same terms would sound abusive, that's a problem. it should be safe. And I know that there are a lot of complicated reasons that people can stay with a religion that doesn't feel safe for them. And sometimes it's not about choosing between something safe and something unsafe. It's about choosing between two unsafe things and trying to figure out which is safer in that moment. And I hope that people can find safety and comfort and fulfillment anywhere that is a good fit for them, that doesn't hurt anyone. One boundary that we want to set for our channel that is probably expected based on this video, but that I nonetheless want to explicitly state just to be sure, is we don't want any pressure directed at us or anyone else in comments or any other part of our community related to religion in particular, or basically anything else. You can believe whatever you want, but this is not a place to try to push your beliefs on anyone else, and I would encourage you to think critically about why it feels okay to you, if it does, to push your beliefs on other people in a context like this. Because there are contexts where it's about safety, contexts where it's about protecting oppressed groups of people, for instance. Like, if there's racism or something in our comments, we want people to be called out for that. And if we see it, we will be one of the ones calling people out for that. Because that's a type of attack, that's a safety issue. And that's not the same type of thing, so that wouldn't be forcing beliefs on someone in the same way, because it's a safety issue. But really anything else outside of something like that, we need this to be an accepting community that is safe from that kind of pressure and prescriptive ideologies, essentially. If that sounds like the kind of community you want to be a part of, feel free to subscribe and ring the bell to see our future videos. We also have a Discord community that you can join if you want, where we have religion generally as one of the topics that needs to be censored and trigger warned, because that's such a common trigger for so many people in our community. But it can be discussed, it just has to be trigger warned. We also, in the description box, have links to our Patreon and our wish list and our Etsy shop, and probably something else that I'm blanking on, but I can't think of it right now. But those things all help us a lot, and we appreciate all of you who really do any of those things to help build our community. We are also doing our gaming live streams on Twitch now, so if you haven't seen that, that's another link that's in our description, that you can come follow us on Twitch and help us reach affiliate to hopefully start getting those live streams monetized, which could help us a lot right now as we wait for our disability application to go through. But again, all of you are awesome and you help us so much, even just by watching videos. It brings more people to our channel and helps grow our community, and our small business. So thank you so much. And if you have thoughts or questions or anything like that, you can put them in comments, or again, come over to Discord. That's another good place for that. And I think that's everything. So thank you so much for watching. Bye.